Welcome to Almost Here, Round the Corner Future Technology podcasts with Richard Jacobs. Future technologies poised to transform our lives for better or worse are the focus of this podcast. Almost here means these technologies are now here and starting to be used, or just around the corner, from Bitcoin to artificial intelligence, 3D printing, blockchain, virtual reality, and more.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Future Tech Podcast. My name is Chris Amsler. Our guest today is Michael Alden with Blue Vase. How are you doing, Mike?
Fabulous, man. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. Good that you're here. Tell us about yourself, your background, your studies, and maybe some of the projects you've been working on.
Sure. Well, it's funny. I'm on a podcast called The Future Tech, and I'm not really a tech guy, right? It's like, well, what are you doing here, Mike? So my background is interesting. I'm an attorney by trade. I started out getting involved in business in the world of direct response, advertising, marketed products and services on television, the radio, a little bit of the internet. And I took my company, Blue Vase, from nothing. We started it in 2009 and have grown it out to a company that's been recognized in Inc. magazine. I've been recognized in SmartCEO magazine, Boston Business Journal, been featured in Yahoo Finance, Entrepreneur.com. I was in an article actually alongside Tim Draper and a couple other, people that are in the cryptocurrency world. And so I'm, primarily someone who again, markets products and services that have a positive impact on people's lives. And, I got to this point where I'm on your podcast now and a bunch of others talking about the world of cryptocurrency, but realizing that I'm not necessarily an expert. In fact, there can't really be very many experts in this world because it's still such a new industry, but I'm just so excited about the opportunity and the ability for the average everyday person to benefit from it. So that's kind of a quick, brief overview of, how we got to where I am today. I've written, several books, 3 Wall Street Journal, USA Today bestsellers. My first one is titled Ask More, Get More, How to Earn More, Save More, and Live More just by asking. My second one is titled 5% More. Then the premise behind 5% More is how anybody can do anything 5% more and achieve extraordinary results. And my latest bestseller, Wall Street Journal, USA Today, is titled Blueprint to Business, where I really show people what it's like to be an entrepreneur. And then maybe the one that we'll probably talk about today is the one I also just literally put out called Crushing Crypto, how anybody can build a fortune in cryptocurrency. So that's kind of a quick, fast, and down and dirty, bio on who I am.
Yeah, well, very good. So that 5% more, we all seem to have just a little bit more effort that we can put behind it. Talk to us more about just that slight additional effort in anything that you do.
Yeah, so it's an interesting story too. I was I'll tell you how it happened, right? I was in a spinning class. I didn't have an idea for a second book. I'm in this spinning class, I'm a pretty big dude, and we get to the end of the class at 45 minutes, and if you've ever been in one, you got an instructor in the front of the room, and you're usually listening to like EDM music or something, and they're getting you fired up, and she says, look, this is a 45-minute class. We have 5 minutes left. And she says, for these last 5 minutes, I want you to give me 5% more effort. She says, if you give me 5% more effort, you're going to burn more calories. Your heart rate's going to increase. When you get off the bike and you sit down, your metabolic rate's going to stay increased. You're going to burn more calories just due to the fact of your resting heart rate. And then ultimately, you're going to live a healthier and happier life. And it just clicked, man. I looked around the whole room. There was to my right, there was a pregnant woman riding the bike. And everybody, different ages, races, ethnicities, everybody seemed to give that little bit of extra effort. And then I said, man, I wonder what it would look like if we took that and applied that philosophy, throughout our daily life. And the first thing I said, well, there's got to be another book out there like it. And there wasn't. I spent a lot of time researching it, and there just wasn't. And when I started to look at the science, again, me not as a tech guy, not a science guy, I'm a lawyer by trade. I'm not a math guy, but I started to dive into human psychology in business a lot more, and actually started even looking at what I've done in business throughout my career and how we've done things. What I realized is that we've just tried a little bit harder. We've worked a little bit longer. We've spent a little bit more time than everybody else. And a lot of times, and I actually recently kind of posted about this. I just turned 43, and a lot of times you want to give up, man. Like there are times where I just want to curl up in my basement and just call it a day, and it happens pretty frequently in the world of being an entrepreneur. But at the same time, you have to have a certain level of self-awareness that you're there, like that you're at that almost make it or break it type point. And so if you just truly can give that little extra effort on a day-to-day basis, that stuff works. When you talk about 10xing your sales or 10xing your income, that's not a reality. And it's not a reality because the human physiology, in other words, the way our brains are wired, it just doesn't work. However, if you just gave a little bit more effort on a daily basis and each day you compound on it, that works. There's science behind that shows that our brains, in fact, do work that way. And you take that and you apply it to virtually any aspect of your life, things really start to happen. By the way, 5% is an arbitrary number. It just came to me from that spinning class, right? But anybody can do anything just a little bit more and compound it. In fact, and it's kind of even got me to where I'm at today. Like, I knew nothing about cryptocurrency. I knew nothing about mining or some of the things we were talking about. I didn't know, it was foreign to me. And it was so foreign to me that I pushed it away when it was originally introduced to me in 2014 because, quite frankly, like most people, you just didn't want to look stupid. You didn't want to sound stupid, But then when I realized what it was and not necessarily just making money and the application of blockchain and how it can change industries and change lives and save lives and make this world a better place, I'm all in, man. This is the future and we're living in it right now.
Yeah, and it's amazing going back to that incremental change, how much that does in the long term. I've had a lot of experiments with that, and you go back to like New Year's resolutions as a prime example of trying to 10x something, and how many people burn out on those resolutions before the end of January. You know what I mean? So
yeah, I mean it's not sustainable, right? It's just not sustainable. Some people might be able to do it for a little bit of time, but it's really just not sustainable. And it's great how you tie that, and that's to the diet industry. That's usually what it is. I mean, look, if you've been eating pizza and Chinese food and drinking beer on the weekends for the past 10 years, it's not realistic for you to go to eating boiled chicken, broccoli, and drinking water. But what is realistic is, okay, so you've been eating, 3 pizzas a week. Let's cut. I mean, I talk about that 5% less, right? So let's just do a little bit less of that, and let's go from walking, just from your couch to your refrigerator, from walking from your couch to your refrigerator to, down the stairs. That's why some of those programs like the from your couch to 5K, those are somewhat realistic because they realize that people are just, couch potatoes. But the big phase in the fitness industry, is the CrossFit, and it's starting to kind of taper off now. But people, there's so many injuries that were happening. It's like, oh man, I'm gonna get off my couch. I'm gonna go into CrossFit. I'm gonna do Tough Mudder. I'm gonna do all these other things, and people are blowing out their knees, their shoulders, and getting injured because they're not ready. Do things slowly. And when you realize it, when you compound on it and just get a little bit better each and every day, things will start to happen. And back, just to circle back to what you said, if you fall off the wagon like everybody does, that's okay, because you can just get back on. You don't have to worry about that you've made this huge mistake. No, you just made a mistake. You cheated. You fell off. Whatever. Get back on. And that's the stuff that works. Slow, incremental, baby steps.
Agreed. Now, earlier you mentioned you started to get involved with cryptocurrency in 2014. What introduced you to that, and how would you describe your journey up to now with cryptocurrency and the things that you've learned?
Yeah, right. So here's the interesting thing. What I said was I was introduced to it in 2014. So I was introduced to it in 2000. Yeah. And so in 2014, I'm an entrepreneur. I got a bunch of different businesses, from direct response to we own our own vodka, to obviously selling books, to selling dietary supplements, and now obviously in the crypto space, I own an escape room. I do all these different things. And so there was an artist that I fell in love with his artwork. I started buying his artwork, and I said, as the classic entrepreneur, I can take this guy and make him famous, right? So I'm gonna take my marketing and my entrepreneurial skills, and I'm going to make him famous and do all these things with him. And I was wrong. But I did start getting him in galleries. I got him in Art Basel, which is the largest art show in the world. And so we were doing some cool things. And, I essentially retained him, right? As like kind of, he was only going to create the art that he creates. We had the exclusive right to sell it, And so he said to me, Mike, this is 2014. Mike, you can start paying me in Bitcoin. And I was like, what is Bitcoin? I said, I don't even know what that is, man. And he's like, well, he starts explaining it to me. And it was at the time, it was like $400. He's like, you should buy a bunch and just pay me in that. And I'm like, look, man, he was a bit of a free spirit. He's like a classic gypsy. He'll go and live anywhere and do and just doesn't really matter to him. And I'm like, nah, that just seems weird to me. I'm just not going to do it. And I didn't understand it. And so I literally just said, no, I'm just going to pay you in the traditional sense. 2014, Bitcoin was at $400. And then later on, a couple of years later, I start to, every day I hear a little bit more about cryptocurrency. And then I'm in the infomercial world, right? So I sell products and services on TV, and I had people approach me and say, Mike, let's do an infomercial on cryptocurrency. I'm like, someone explain it to me. Like, even the people that said I should do something, they couldn't even explain it to me. So yet again, I just kind of pushed it away. And then but the more and more I just kept getting hit with it, and the more and more high net worth people and some of the speaking engagements that I would participate in, and I would be on stage with other people, and they're talking about it. I'm like, I have to study this. I have to learn about this, because I'm sitting around in rooms where there's literally 100 millionaires and billionaires and multimillionaires, and they're talking about this cryptocurrency stuff. I felt as though that I wasn't able to effectively, provide and add value in these conversations, because I just didn't understand it. And then when it really clicked with me was back in, I want to say, like August of last year of 2017. I mean, that's how long I've really been in it. So, and by the way, I'm like everybody else, right? But so back then, I'm sitting at the Wynn Towers in Las Vegas, which is the private pool area at the Wynn. Okay, and so you have to be staying at the Wynn Towers there. And I'm with some other guys, and they're in my cabana, and they're talking about Bitcoin, and they're talking about cryptocurrency. And Steve Wynn walked right by. It was somewhat surreal, because he's such a huge entrepreneur himself. And I said, that's it, man. I'm like, I have to study this. So I came back here in Boston, and I started studying, Bitcoin, cryptocurrency, almost like I studied for the bar exam. And I first, the first part of that journey was, I said, well, I have to, let me buy some. Let me just see what it's like. Let me figure out how to open up a wallet. Let me figure out how to get get on an exchange. Let me go through the process. And it was foreign. It was different. It was scary. And, because I didn't know it. But the only way to really learn something is either to do it or to teach it. And so I said, well, first let me start doing it, and then I'll start teaching it later. And what I realized from there is that when I started talking about it, and I sell all sorts of products, and my books have sold all over the world, and we're doing great things with them. But I have a hard time getting my own personal inner circle, like, of family members, to buy one of my books that could truly change their life. When they started hearing what I was doing with cryptocurrency, they're like, Mike, we want in. Show us how. And I was like, wow, man, like, okay, so there's something to this. And so then I just was like, all right, well, let me continue to educate people. I just want to educate people. That's all I want to do. I want to give the information. And I tell people all the time, I'm not an expert. I started out saying this. I'm a bit of a neophyte. I'm trying to learn as much as I can, but I know more than most now. And so I just want people to at least get that base level of information. And what you do with it from there is really up to you.
Nice. And so this is what you talk about in Crushing Crypto, yes?
That's exactly it. So I wrote Crushing Crypto fast, man. I mean, my books usually take 1 to 2 years, right? And so, I wrote this in months. And so let me just say this. I'm not going to win a Pulitzer Prize for this, but what I will do is give the average everyday person the base level information so that they can understand this world in a way that, I tell people when I don't understand something, talk to me like I'm in second grade. And that's the really kind of the best way to communicate to people something that's foreign to them. And so I wrote Crushing Crypto originally for my friends, my relatives, and literally my neighbors. I got a neighbor he's a veterinarian, and he was texting me, Mike, can I come over, and can we sit down, and can we talk about, Bitcoin and cryptocurrency and all these other things? I said, sure, man, let's do it. By the way, he hasn't done it yet because, one, he's probably busy, but, again, a lot of times people are just afraid, when you hear about the term FUD, right, which is the big thing in our world, fear, uncertainty, and doubt. But fear, uncertainty, and doubt excludes people. It also creates this what I call if I had only syndrome. If I'd only got back, if I'd only listened to Mike, if I only picked up his book, if I only studied it, if I'd only done this, I wonder what my life would look like. And I've lived through those moments, man. Like I was in law school, during the .com boom, and I was broke. I didn't have any money, and even after law school, when I passed the bar exam and the real estate market was booming and people were flipping houses like, the average people who didn't know anything about real estate figured it out and they were flipping houses. I didn't have the money to do that, and I'm also not a very, handy guy. And so, we weren't around. You and I, you might have been. I don't know, but I wasn't around in the late 1800s during the gold rush, right? So there were all these opportunities throughout life, throughout history that I've never been a part of, and there's been a bunch of small ones in between. The marijuana industry. I have never even smoked a cigarette, so it doesn't really interest me. It's not my thing. I've seen how drugs have ruined people's lives, so I don't care how much money can be made. It's not something I'm passionate about. But there's all these different industries and booms and all these other things that have come my way or passed by me because the timing wasn't right, or I didn't have the resources, and I didn't know people. I didn't have brokerage accounts. I didn't have money. I didn't have any of that stuff. Most people still don't. But within the world of cryptocurrency, anybody can get involved and anybody can learn about it, and anybody can throw $100 at, opening up a Coinbase account or Binance or whatever it is and start to benefit from it. And that to me is exciting. So I've been screaming about this from the rooftops. I reached out to you, right? Because I wanted to come on your podcast because I know you got a big reach, and I just want people to pay attention. That's why I wrote Crushing Crypto. That's why I'm here, and that's why I'm so excited.
That's really cool to hear. It's funny because I'm in a very similar boat, and the people that I talk to about cryptocurrency, I mention it, and they get super excited and want to know more. And I'm getting to that teaching phase as well, and where it makes more sense. But at the same time, you have the naysayers still. I'll bring it up to apartments I go to, and oh no, I don't. I think it's better to get involved in X, Y, or Z, and I'm sitting there thinking, we're at the forefront of something amazing. We're at the beginning of this, almost widespread adoption. We're right before that. So it's interesting talking to people and seeing the level of excitement or the big level of fear, just very polarizing. So what are your comments on that and the people that you?
Yeah, I mean, so I don't know if you heard of Zig Ziglar, but he's a motivational speaker. He's written a bunch of books. He wrote the book called See at the Top. I recommend it to anybody who wants to just motivate themselves. And I had an opportunity to meet him and have dinner with him. And he's, to me, he's like a deity. And he passed away a few years ago. But he says fear is false evidence appearing as real. And so fear is a healthy thing, right? It as humans, the fight or flight type thing, right? And so it's there for a reason. It's there because it's so that we can truly use our instincts in order to make decisions. The problem is that people use that fear is truly like I had in 2014, and what happens is they just pass by that opportunity because of that fear. And so you have to, and such basic stuff, man, like all the stuff I talk about in all my books and everything I've ever done has to be basic because I'm a basic guy. Like I need it to be, again, down to that second grade level so that I can understand it. Even, when I was in law school, I just tried to really, for myself, just try and break things down so that it was just really, really basic, So the challenge is that people are fearful. They're fearful because of they're looking at the media and when Bitcoin is dipping, it's all of a sudden the world is crashing in, or when there's a hack or whatever it is. It's something new. Okay, so the only thing that I know really in life, the only thing that's constant is in fact change. And so people are fearful of change. People are fearful of becoming uncomfortable, and including me. Okay, including every human being. But you need to be able to recognize that and say, all right, well, I'm going to put myself in that uncomfortable situation. In fact, when you and I talked earlier about, you sent me over the questions, and I usually don't look at questions, but my assistant knows me, and she's like, you just look at them, and there were some questions that were kind of almost tied more to tech type stuff. When I told you I'm not a tech guy, but I'm not going to come on your podcast and talk about the things that I think are important to people because some of the questions I might not really be able to answer really to your liking. I'm still going to add value. So I could have easily just said, you know what, man, boy, some of those questions, I'm not going to be able to answer them. So therefore, I'm not going to come on the podcast and share the information. That's crazy. And that's what a lot of people do. And so my point with all that stuff in cryptocurrency, and this is why, again, I wrote Crushing Crypto, is that I just want people to overcome their fears. I want you to understand that, what we're really talking about right now in this world, that you really are living in one of the greatest times in the history of this world and the history of mankind, where the blockchain technology, which is the underlying technology that is really supporting this whole world of cryptocurrency, is changing the world every second. And there are new industries that are creating and that are probably being created right now as you and I are talking that you and I don't even know about as a result of blockchain technology. So when I think about fear and I think about what's happening right now, please listen to what I'm saying. Try and understand, whether you buy my book or whether you watch my videos or whatever, it doesn't really matter what you do with me. I just want people to get involved so that they can look back in life and say, you know what, man, I lived during that time and I was able to take advantage of that opportunity. Because when you think about what I talked about earlier, real estate, stock market, okay, most people just don't have the resources, they don't have the time, and it is complicated. Cryptocurrency, just that term in and of itself, is scary, right? We were talking about like crypto. They should change. I understand it's based off of cryptography, right? Maybe if they called it something else, more people would be less fearful of it. But the fear people need to get over, because there's going to be a point where it is going to be too late. As I told you earlier, I was just at a conference in New York in over the weekend, but it really still is the beginning of the beginning, and that's exciting. And so you're here, you're alive, and you have the ability to take advantage of the greatest opportunity of our lives. Whether you invest in cryptocurrency or whether you take advantage of the blockchain technology as an entrepreneur, as a business person, as a stay-at-home mom, okay, whatever it is, you just need to pay attention, because you never want to be that person that said, if I'd have only done it.
Yeah, and that kind of ties in really well with the 5% more. I think about someone that I talked to recently about getting a wallet and getting in to the space, and they said, you don't have to have a ton of money to get into this. You can start with whatever amount you like, a small amount, an incremental amount. Just do like $20 a month, start with that or whatever. But that small effort, as you mentioned earlier, is going to compound over time.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, so here's another thing too, I'll say, and I talk about this briefly in the book, is that a lot of people, so right now I haven't looked, but I think Bitcoin's just hovering right around 10,000. At one point it hit almost 20, and who knows where it's going to go. But I think a lot of people think that, okay, well, because Bitcoin's 10,000, it's too late for me, or I have to buy $10,000. No, you could buy literally $1 in Bitcoin. So when you actually, if you go back to 2009 and you get to December of 2017, $1 invested in Bitcoin in 2009, and you get to that point in 2017 was worth over $30 million. That's a real number, and it sounds crazy to say. It's here's the best part about it. I had one of my lawyers said, "Well, Mike, how can we substantiate that?" And I said, "Well, here's the great news. Well, one, we have the blockchain, okay? Two, you have the historical data. You could just easily just show that, right? And so some people might think, well, man, it's too late for me. No, it's not too late. It's the beginning, and you could just buy $1. You know what I mean? You can open up a Coinbase account for nothing. It doesn't cost you. You can open up an account with some of these other trading platforms or some of these other digital wallets, and it doesn't cost you anything. But just do it first, and then just, like we talked about the 5%, maybe, depending on your comfort level, just take those baby steps. Put $1 in, put $5 a week in, put $5 a month in, whatever it is. Just learn about it, read about it, and then just take those steps that that you're comfortable with, whatever your budget can afford. I have friends that have families that have I have a buddy of mine who's got 3 kids and a wife and a house and a mortgage and all this other stuff, and he doesn't have a lot of expendable income. But he started out, he put $200 in, and he put another $200, and I think he might have put a total of $500 into a Coinbase account, and then it jumped up to, it doubled. I mean, right now it's, come back down a little bit, but it doubled, and he was like so excited about that. That's a lot of money for a lot of people. Now, I have other friends that have done the same thing and sold and capitalized on it and converted it into the dollar. And again, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not giving people financial advice, and you got to really be careful with that. What I'm saying is that, like you said, you could just throw a little bit at it. Like I think Tony Robbins said, and a few other people have said, look, put in as much as you can, so long as you're willing to lose whatever it is you put in.
That's a great way to get involved or get started with it. So you were talking about the NAC conference earlier. What were your experiences there?
Yeah, so it was my first conference, and I wanted to go to the one in Miami, and just with all my other things that I'm doing, I just wasn't able to, and there's one coming up in Dubai, and I'll probably go to that in April, and so it was my first one, and I was excited and had a little nervous too, right? Because it's new for me, it's a new industry in the world of direct response. I've been on TV 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for close to 10 years. And in my world, people know me and I know them. And so when I go to these conferences, it's like, we're just patting each other on the back saying, hey, what's up? This time though, for me, it was new. And so I sat there and it was 8 hours. And I just listened to presentations and listened to different people talk about different technologies and the application of the blockchain and some of the negative things that are happening and some of the great things that are happening. And then just, in between the breaks, just meeting people and talking to them about their experiences and what they're doing and what they're seeing. And so for me, again, because I am, all in the world of cryptocurrency, and because I am a student of anything that I do, I realize that in order for me to really educate myself and benefit and capitalize on this world, I just need to learn more. And so it happened to be in New York. I'm in Boston. I took the train. I got up at 4 a.m, took a 6 a.m. train, was there at 10, and just tried to immerse myself in it. And so my takeaway from that conference, a lot of people have asked me that, is it really is the beginning. And there were some rock stars there. Nick Spanos, he's the guy that was in the documentary called Banking on Bitcoin. He was one of the first people to create a truly a trading floor for Bitcoin. If you haven't watched that documentary, again, it's called Banking on Bitcoin. It's on Netflix. I recommend everybody watch it. And he was one of the key characters or key adopters of Bitcoin. And he was there, and to sit there and talk with somebody who's truly an innovator and who saw what we now all see way before us is just kind of awesome. And so it really is the beginning. The technology is evolving over time, and the adoption rate is slowly starting to happen as well. In other words, where people are using it. I just got I got a Shift card, right, which is essentially a debit card that's tied to my Coinbase account into my Bitcoin wallet. And so, you can, the things like that where, you can use that to go and buy coffee. I actually didn't use it yet. I was going to use it today before we got on this podcast. But so the adoption rate for the use of cryptocurrency is definitely something that was talked about a little bit. And one of the big themes was, and this is why I'm doing your podcast and I'm going to do as many as I possibly can, is that people just need to learn about it, and people need to understand that, for instance, cryptocurrency is serving so many great purposes, but there are 4 billion people on this planet that are what we call unbankable, right? They can't open a bank account for whatever reason. There are people on this planet because of just where they were born. They truly have no identity, and that's just crazy to think about. Like, they don't have a name, a real name. They don't have any sort of way to independently verify who they are. And that's imagine living like that. But there are people like that, and so they're just impoverished. They're literally just, I don't know. They're just trying to live and eat and breathe, but they can't prosper because of the world that we're living in now. Cryptocurrency is changing that for people. It's allowing people to open up an account, to start to trade, and then start to build up truly, essentially, a digital identity. And then from there, if they need to, take things to another level, then it's like, okay, well, I have some sort of history. Here I am, so there are companies and there are, coins, right, that are helping those people. And that's awesome. It's inspiring. It's changing people's lives. And so that, I left the NAC3 conference, being more inspired and just more excited about this world, and I can't wait to go to the rest of them that are coming up.
That's awesome, and you have a really passionate energy for all of this, and it's good to hear that. And I know that more people are going to want to check out your, especially Crushing Crypto, to get involved with that. Any final thoughts before we wrap up today?
That's it, man. Again, I just want to thank you, for having me on. And again, you could tell my theme is I just want people to pay attention. Whether you pick up my book, Crushing Crypto, is to me is people said to me that one guy said to me, said, Mike, you've generated hundreds of millions of dollars. You got great businesses. You're doing a lot of things. Like, why do this? And money is important. I'd lie to you if I tell you I wasn't making money off of the things that we're selling. Of course we are. We live in a capitalist society. But what really excites me is the opportunity. What really excites me in the business world is to grow things and to build things and to share with others the opportunity that is truly there. In other words, if you go out and buy a bunch of Bitcoin, I don't make money from that. If you go out and invest in whatever, I'm not making money from that. But I want people to prosper. I want people to really to truly understand that this is the greatest opportunity of your life, and it really is. And I'm not the only one saying it. I'm not just some fast talker from Boston who's telling you, that it is. There, the biggest people in the world are saying it. And like you had mentioned earlier, there are naysayers, but it doesn't really matter. Pay attention to it. Spend some time. I wrote Crushing Crypto to do my best to give people that information so that they can then make an informed decision.
So great chatting with you today, Michael. What's the best place people can contact you or find out more about Blue Vase?
Sure. You can find out more about me. It actually is probably the easiest way. So my handle, so to speak, is at Mike Alden, ALDEN 2012. So at Mike Alden 2012. You can find me on Twitter, Snapchat, Instagram, Facebook. You can also just go to michael-alden.com. You can find me there. And if people have questions, I'll try and answer them for you. If you want to pick up my book, you can just go to Join Crushing Crypto, CRYPTO.com. Again, joincrushingcrypto.com. It's in a digital format. It's in an audio format, and that's where I am.
Very good. Michael Alden with Blue Vase, thank you so much for joining us today. And we would like to thank everybody for listening in to the Future Tech Podcast. We'll catch you all next time.
You have been listening to Almost Here, Around the Corner Future Technology Podcast with Richard Jacobs. Subscribe to this podcast, post a review to discover more future technologies that are poised to transform our lives for better or worse, such as Bitcoin, artificial intelligence, 3D printing, blockchain, virtual reality, and more.